We came here because I know and my members know that the Ireland-Canada business opportunity is huge. But I knew that I needed to amplify that message. And the best way to amplify that is through the noisiest crowd of business people you can ever meet, who are the gateway to Europe guys, who I know that you know well. So I'm very lucky to have know Aidy and Robbie and the guys through my day job at National College of Ireland. And this opportunity kind of formed around timing and around, I will say it's before the whole Mark Carney phenomenon and all of that. This time last year, I heard the guys on Newstalk from Boston and I got jealous. And I said, maybe we could bring this group to Toronto. I know they have their very strong roots in Boston, but maybe we could expand the trip. And in doing that, we started something that actually became much bigger than I ever thought it was going to be.
Why Toronto rather than anywhere else in Canada?
It's the gateway. It was like if you come to Ireland, you will go to Dublin first in the main. Toronto is financial services and tech hub. The Mars Innovation District is the largest innovation district in North America. A lot of financial services best practice comes out of the prudent approach that the Canadians through Toronto take to technology and finance, and particularly around fintech. So it makes sense if you're going to take people in for their first time into this market. But while we're here, we have talked to them about the 10 provinces, the 3 territories, and we have had representation here from Ottawa, from Alberta, from Montreal, and hopefully at future visits will expand beyond.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to host a panel discussion earlier today with 3 businesses who have either ties to Ireland, bases in Ireland, but also in Canada. And one of the things that struck me from that panel conversation was the understanding and appreciation that Canada, you can't just lump North America all together, right? You have to understand that Canada is different. But one of the panelists said that the values of the Canadians mirror the values of Irish businesses, and that means that symbiotic relationship makes a lot of sense from a business point of view, not just a nice place to hang out kind of place.
Yeah. It is very much about the business piece. We still know at the end of the day, friends do business with friends. You do business with people who are like you and whose values are similar. And it goes beyond the historic roots. It is very much the commercial opportunity. And at your panel and some of the other panels, that was very well presented, the size and scale of the opportunity. The current scale is really good. It's still not known to people. Ireland being the 10th largest investor in Canada is huge. $16 billion worth of trade going back and forward bilaterally is fantastic across professional services and goods. But because of the time that we are in, and because, as people are saying here in Toronto, because of their southern neighbour, as I whisper slightly saying that, the opportunity is huge. We couldn't, if we were to just purely do business with Canada for the rest of our lives, we still would only be scratching the surface of the Canada-US relationship. Even if we weren't in this situation, the opportunity is still there. Yeah. And people talk to us about timing the first night of our trip, thinking, are you and Aidy really clever getting this timing right? No, we're not. We'd love to say we were. Yeah. This was planned back in May. You know, we spoke in November last year. Yeah. And I have to say, am I a bit smoke? I'm very smoke here. Yeah. Because I'm thinking, oh yeah, this really proved to be the right thing to do. But what I have really been thinking about in the last day or so as we go through the panels and the meetings, which has been fantastic, facilitated by all of our stakeholders on the ground here, particularly supported by the embassy here, is that we now need to tell this story to whoever we meet. You said at your panel that you acknowledged, and everybody has said, it's an amazing story, we just need to amplify it. Yeah. And that's why the beauty of having yourself and Kieran along on the trip is amazing. I've had lots of texts from my peers in Dublin going, oh, you were name checked today in Ireland, Canada, and the opportunity, and Jess and Kieran, fantastic. Let's keep going with that. But if you think about 65 CEOs and executives who are in Toronto, in the main for business for the first time, they now need to go and talk to their peer networks. Aidy stood up and talked about all of his peer networks, who he would talk to. We have business leaders like Neil Naughton, whose family have been doing business here for a long time, who can tell people this works, this is fantastic, it is the values, it is the way of doing business, and it's a huge opportunity.
One of the other panels, there was talk around, access. So the airports, the routes. I think there's 4 flights a day between Ireland and Toronto, but there's an appetite for increasing that. What impact would that have? And not just out of Dublin Airport, but Cork and Shannon as well.
So obviously, because we're in Ireland, the air access piece is huge. As the Ireland-Canada Business Association, we're around since 1978. We have been lobbying for direct air access as much as possible. But it's one thing, often we will achieve the flight. We won't achieve the fact that it's all year round, and that becomes an issue. So when we were taken off from Dublin on Sunday, I was very kindly sponsored by Air Canada to be here, and to see there was an Air Canada, the first Vancouver direct flight of the season, was sitting beside the Toronto plane that I was getting on. I was with the sales manager for Air Canada, Blahin, and Blahin goes, "This makes me smile." And I said, "This makes me smile too." So we're very lucky. We have Aer Lingus, we have WestJet, we have Transtat, we have airlines coming out. But I do think we need to refocus from a national government perspective, particularly how we deal with the airport cap, and particularly a very cohesive approach around how Canadian air travel for business and pleasure is dealt with.
One of the things that myself and Kieran have been talking about just before we go to Boston is the apprehension around getting through the border. Now, we are travelling with our lovely Irish passports. We have the correct visas, so there's an I visa is the one that people who work in media get issued from the embassy in Dublin. And we're both a bit nervous because you're hearing stories, and there's a narrative now that the land of the free and the home of the brave may not be as welcoming to everybody as it once was. How important is it from Canada's point of view to be welcoming and to offer and to shout about not only its business opportunities but also its tourism opportunities, or its academic opportunities for students who maybe had been contemplating studying in America? How important is it for Canada to make up the most of what is an uncomfortable and unfortunate situation, but to turn it into an opportunity?
Yes, the Canadians are too humble for their own good. And yeah, it's a fantastic quality in many ways. But a lot of what we spoke about in the last few days is the humility now has to be overtaken by stand up and get out there and tell your story, which very much reflects Mark Carney's elbows up type approach. Now, in fairness, that has got him elected. And as we know, the meeting with Trump, etc., that's all very important. But we need Canada to literally amplify the fact that things like, and I would go beyond some of the things that you have said there, I would talk about diversity, equality and inclusion. I do a lot of tenders for my day job, and when I look at US companies now, I have to change my language because I know I have to. I don't when I'm dealing with a Canadian company. When we look at the education piece, that's changing. So from a third level education piece, we will absolutely see more students come into Ireland and potentially Canadian ones. So there are going to be so many opportunities. Ambassador Concannon has commissioned a report of all the stakeholders will come together, including ourselves, to pinpoint specifically the opportunities across regions, across sectors, and that is actually going to be a really pivotal document that will lead now to 3 or 4 years of a very cohesive, concentrated plan about how we tackle the market as a whole.